The town was small, but it lived loudly. Its streets wound in crooked lines between houses of stone and timber, their roofs tiled in clay that glowed red when the sun rose over the hills. Every morning, doors creaked open one after another, spilling the narrow lanes with voices, women calling to one another from windows, children chasing one another with laughter, merchants dragging their carts into the square where the market bloomed each day like a flower of noise. The doors were more than wood and iron. They were symbols of life itself. Each bore scratches from years of hands pressing against them, the marks of feet that had kicked them closed in anger, the stains of festivals where wine had been spilled in joy. Behind them, families gathered at night, safe from the cold wind that curled through the valley. A door opened easily when a friend knocked, and even more quickly when a neighbor came asking for bread or salt. There was no fear in the town, for the doors had always answered. They opened to life and closed against darkness. That was enough. The people, though they argued as all neighbors do, trusted one another in the simple way that grows from years of shared seasons. They celebrated harvest together, and when snow fell heavy, they shared firewood. Even strangers, should they wander through, found hospitality behind those doors, for the town believed that a closed door to the needy was a curse that would return upon the house. It was an ordinary place, neither rich nor poor, neither grand nor ruined. But it had rhythm, the rhythm of doors opening and closing, of voices spilling out, of footsteps echoing between stone walls. No one questioned it. And no one imagined that such a rhythm could break. It happened on an ordinary evening, when the town prepared to settle into its nightly rhythm. Smoke curled from chimneys, carrying the smell of bread and stews. Doors had begun to close, one by one, as families drew in from the chill and bolted themselves against the dark. The last rays of sunlight bent low across the rooftops when a shadow crossed the sky. It was not large, but it was deliberate. A raven, black as coal and glinting faintly in the dying light, descended from above. Its wings beat slow and steady, its body cutting the air with the certainty of a thing that belongs wherever it goes. The people in the square saw it. They looked up, shielding their eyes. To them, it was only a bird. And yet, a hush fell over the crowd, unspoken, as if some part of them already understood that this was no ordinary creature. The raven circled once, twice, before settling on the roof of a house near the market. Its claws gripped the clay tiles with a scraping sound that made even the boldest children flinch. It stood tall and still, its head cocked, its black eyes glinting like obsidian stones. And in that moment, something happened. A man reached for his door to go inside, but the handle would not turn. He frowned, pushed harder, then struck it with his shoulder. The door held fast, unmoving, though it was not locked. Across the square, another woman tried the same. Her door rattled but would not yield. Soon, voices rose as more hands tugged, pushed, and struck at their own doors. Children cried as their parents pulled in vain. The shutters refused to, windows would not open, as if the whole town had been sealed from within. Panic rippled through the streets. People shouted for help, cursed their neighbors, begged the carpenters to fetch tools. Hammers rang out against stubborn wood, but even iron yielded nothing. The doors did not break, did not splinter, did not even bend. They simply refused. Above it all, the raven remained. It did not move, did not cry, did not stir. It sat upon the roof like a dark crown, silent and absolute. Its presence pressed down heavier than the weight of stone walls. And the people, one by one, fell silent too. No door in the town would open. And so the night came down upon them with every family trapped behind their own walls, staring into the dark, listening to the silence, and wondering what curse the bird had brought. The night that followed was unlike any the town had ever known. Families huddled in their rooms, their doors and shutters sealed as if the wood itself had turned to stone. The streets, usually alive with footsteps and laughter even after dark, lay empty. No one could step outside. No one could seek a neighbor's comfort. At first, the townsfolk shouted through their windows. They called to one another across the alleys, voices cracking with fear. "Does your door open?" "No." "Nor mine." "Is it the same everywhere?" Soon the shouts grew desperate. Some cursed, blaming witchcraft, demanding that the priest come forth with holy words. Others accused neighbors of harboring sin, saying the raven had landed in punishment for their secret crimes. Children pressed their faces to glass panes, eyes wide, their cries muffled against the silence of the streets. But above all, on that roof by the market square, the raven still perched. It had not stirred since it landed. Its feathers gleamed in the moonlight, black with a sheen of steel. Its eyes caught the dim light and held it, two cold sparks watching every window, every shutter, every trembling voice. The braver men tried to break their confinement. They beat their doors with axes and hammers, but the blows only rang out, leaving the wood unmarked. Others climbed to their upper rooms, trying to smash through shutters or leap to the street. Yet the glass would not shatter, nor the wood split. Even ladders placed against walls seemed to slip away, as though the town itself resisted escape. Whispers began to grow. "It is the bird. It brought this curse." And yet, no one dared to throw a stone at it. No one dared to lift a bow or even raise a hand toward the roof. For though it did not move, the raven's stillness was sharper than threat, heavier than claws or beak. Its silence bound them tighter than any rope. By midnight, panic gave way to despair. Families sat by their hearths with cold food untouched. Mothers hushed their children. Fathers stared at their doors as if waiting for them to breathe again. The whole town was caged, each house a cell, each person trapped in walls they had built themselves. And in the dark, the thought grew in every heart. If the raven would not leave, perhaps no door would ever open again. By dawn, the town was pale with fear. No smoke rose from chimneys, no bread baked in ovens, no doors creaked open to greet the day. The people had shouted themselves hoarse in the night, and now they spoke in low voices, cautious and broken. Still the raven sat unmoving on the roof near the square, black against the pale morning sky. The younger men cursed the bird and swore they would kill it if only their hands could reach it. The mothers clutched their children, whispering prayers. But it was the elders who spoke with voices heavy as stone. They remembered. "The bird is no accident," said the oldest woman of the town, her hair white, her eyes clouded but clear in knowing. She sat by her shutter, speaking so that those in the next house could hear. "I have heard this tale before. Long ago, before we were born, before even our parents' parents, it was said that a raven landed on a roof, and the town where it perched was sealed." The people fell silent, straining to hear her frail voice. "It was a punishment," she went on. "Not from the bird, but from what the bird carried with it. Silence. Judgment. A memory of what was done and what was forgotten." Another elder, his back bent from years of work, added his voice. "I, too, recall the story. My grandmother told it to me as a warning, that a raven would come when hospitality was broken. That when a wanderer begged for shelter and was turned away, the doors of the town would close until hearts opened again." Murmurs rose from house to house. Some scoffed, saying the old ones chased shadows. Others whispered that such a tale fit too well. They recalled, uneasily, how only last winter a beggar had come knocking through the snow, and many doors had refused him. He had vanished by morning, his body never found. Now the people looked at their own doors with dread. Had their own hands that had shut out a stranger, become the locks that bound them? The raven shifted once, its claws scraping tile. The sound echoed like iron in the stillness. The elders lowered their voices, but their words carried far, weightier than the cries of panic. "This is no curse to be broken by hammer or blade. It is a debt to be paid. Until it is answered, no door will open." The townsfolk wept and argued, torn between anger and guilt. But none could deny that the old words rang truer than any explanation they had invented in their fear. And still, the raven did not fly. The day passed in dread, and when evening returned, the people felt the weight of silence heavier than before. No door had yet yielded, no shutter had bent, no lock had loosened. The raven still clung to its place upon the roof by the market, its black shape etched against the dim sky like a mark of ink that could not be scrubbed away. The town prepared for the second night, though preparation was a word too strong. Families sat inside their houses as prisoners do, moving listlessly, speaking little. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, but no bread could be shared, no neighbor could bring grain or water to another. The wells in the market were locked away by the doors that would not open. In every house, the silence grew different. In one, a husband and wife stared at each other across their cold table, remembering harsh words spoken months ago that had never been forgiven. In another, children asked questions their parents could not answer. Why will the doors not open? Why won't the raven leave? Some wept quietly, some shouted, some sat in long silence that felt sharper than knives. And everywhere, people thought of the beggar, the one turned away, the one who had vanished. His face, forgotten in life, grew clearer in their minds with every hour. Guilt was a shadow that stretched long in the lamplight. The raven did not move. Midnight came, and with it came whispers. From window to window, across the alleys, voices called through the dark. But they were no longer the cries of neighbors seeking help. They were confessions, secrets breaking loose. One man shouted that he had stolen grain from the market. Another woman cried that she had lied about her neighbor's child. Some spoke of small cruelties, others of heavier sins. Each voice cracked, as though forcing words through a door inside themselves that had long been sealed. And when the confessions rang out, others answered, not with forgiveness, but with anger. Voices rose in curses, families shouted across the streets, blaming each other, accusing, howling. The air filled with noise, sharp and bitter, like thunder without rain. Then the raven cawed. It was only once, but the sound split the town like a blade. Deep, harsh, final, it silenced every voice at once. No one spoke after. They sat in their houses, trembling, staring into the dark corners where lamplight did not reach. The bird had not flown, yet its cry carried the weight of judgment. It told them, without words, that every secret was known, every lie uncovered, every wound laid bare. The long night stretched on. And when dawn finally touched the roofs, the raven was still there. By the second dawn, the town was fraying. Hunger burned sharper, thirst cracked lips, and the silence pressed down like iron. The people had endured 2 nights behind doors that would not open, and now their patience broke. At first, they tried once more with tools. Axes, hammers, chisels, men struck the wood until their arms ached, but the doors stood as though carved from stone. Windows, too, resisted, glass refusing to shatter, shutters refusing to splinter. The houses had become cages, and the town itself a prison. The raven still perched on the same roof. It had not moved in 2 days, yet its presence grew heavier with each hour. Its stillness was worse than flight, worse than hunger. The people began to shout at it, hurling curses through their windows. "Begone, bird! Leave us! Monster! Devil's servant! Fly, and take your curse with you!" But the raven only turned its head slowly, black eyes catching the pale light. It gave no answer, no movement, nothing but a silence deeper than their screams. Desperation twisted into fury. Neighbors who once shared bread now shouted across the alleys, blaming one another. "It is your sin that brought this," cried one voice. Another answered, "No, it is yours. Your cruelty, your greed." The arguments became a roar, house against house, family against family. Old grudges spilled into the open, debts unpaid, insults remembered, betrayals whispered but never confessed. The air itself trembled with anger. Children cried in fear, clutching their mothers, while fathers shouted through barred windows like men at war. The market square echoed with voices though no feet stood upon its stones. It was not a town now, but a hive of rage sealed in wooden boxes. And then, above the chaos, the raven opened its beak. Its cry rang out like thunder striking stone. Harsh, ragged, unearthly, it tore through every voice at once. The sound filled every house, every chest, every ear. The people clutched their heads and fell silent, their fury swallowed by dread. When the echo died, not one soul dared to speak. The raven's caw had cut them to their marrow, and in its weight they felt not noise, but judgment. The town was broken. Pride had turned to anger, anger to despair. And now, only silence remained. The third dawn came pale and thin, its light weak as though the sun itself feared to touch the town. The streets lay empty, the air heavy. Behind their sealed doors, the people no longer shouted, no longer cursed. They sat in silence, hollow-eyed, as though the raven's cry had carved the voices from their throats. And still, the bird remained. It had not eaten, not moved, not even shaken its wings. Yet its presence filled every corner of the town, pressing upon every chest like a stone. Some wept quietly, some prayed, some stared at their locked doors with despair. Then, at last, the raven stirred. Its wings opened wide, black feathers catching the morning light like shards of night itself. With one slow movement, it lifted from the roof. Its claws scraped tile once more, a final sound that cut through the silence, and then it rose into the air. Higher and higher it climbed, circling once above the town before vanishing into the gray sky. In the moment it was gone, the doors opened. Every bolt slid back, every latch lifted, every hinge gave way with a groan. Windows flew wide, shutters cracked apart. The people stumbled into the streets, blinking against the sudden light, their faces pale, their bodies weak from hunger and fear. They looked at one another as though seeing strangers. The square filled with murmurs, then questions, then accusations. Yet no one raised their voice above the other, for the memory of the raven's cry still lingered in their bones. The elders stood in the center and spoke, their voices weary. The doors were not closed by wood nor iron, they said. They were closed by us. By what we turned away. By what we denied. The bird did not bind us, it only showed us what was already bound. The people bowed their heads. Some wept openly, others clenched their fists in shame. Children clung to their mothers, too young to understand but heavy with the fear their elders carried. The market reopened, bread was baked again, smoke rose from chimneys. Life returned, as life always does. But it was different. Doors no longer opened as easily as before. Neighbors looked at one another with suspicion, with guilt, with the memory of secrets shouted through the night. Trust had thinned, and silence lingered where once there had been laughter. And though the raven had flown, its shadow remained. For in every heart lived the same thought, the bird may return. And if it did, they feared that this time, the doors might never open again.